All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Me here, talking about real music and trying to do it in real time for a couple of real people out there, just like you and just like me. Thanks for the one or two of you who are watching the videos. I appreciate that. The numbers are way down and things are getting back to the way they were a few months ago. Um, I need a big interview or something to boost the algorithm. And this is why I ask people to support the channel. If you like the content and you want to be a part of this, seriously, if I didn't have patrons, I don't know if I could continue doing this because YouTube is not, the algorithm is not my friend. So, again, Patreon, YouTube memberships, also buy me a coffee, which has been pretty successful since I started doing that. So I thank everybody for buying me coffee. It's keeping things going, keeping the lights on here. All right, so Atlantic, this is really good stuff. The album's called Another World. Came out about, I think, like 10 days ago or something like that. And I got a notification about it, went and listened, and yeah, it's kind of holy crap Batman stuff, right? So there's the band. If you want some great melodic AOR, some great keyboards, this is kind of in my wheelhouse. I hear everything from, say, Asia to Golden Earring to like late 80s Foreigner, like Inside Information kind of sounding stuff. And it's just good. All right. It's good music if you like that style. So Atlantic and Another World, courtesy of our friends over at Escape Music. Now, Ross Valory is out there doing interviews. And he's talking again about Jeff Scott Soto. um, I sent Jeff a message the first time, and he was just like, I don't even want to talk about this anymore. Just um, he told me some things that corrected what was said, and we've been through this. And I've noticed that the Journey fans, unless you're talking about Steve Perry, they don't really care. If you put former Journey singer, which is true about Jeff Scott Soto, 11 months he was employed by the Journey franchise, and he was told, by the way, that he had the gig. And then suddenly the rug got pulled out from under him. Now, here's the paragraph from a recent interview that Ross Valory, who has a very weird and very eclectic solo album that is out there, and that's why he's probably doing interviews. But here's a paragraph from this latest interview. He says here, Jeff stepped up and did everything he could to fill several other people's shoes on short notice. A different approach to entertainment, a different kind of voice, a different approach to entertainment. Okay, that's an interesting line. Yeah, Jeff is a seasoned frontman. He's been in Trans-Siberian Orchestra for I don't know how many years, but you have to be really good to get that gig. Not only do you have to have a great voice, but you have to have a great stage presence. And one thing you could say over the years, Steve Perry had a pretty good stage presence overall, but Jeff Scott Soto, I think, took that to a whole new level. I mean, his approach was to kind of roam the stage, to get everybody involved, to interact with band members, to interact with the audience, and to, gesture like, so like, what's that dude from I'm thinking of the Bugs Bunny cartoons where Leopold he's getting bugs to sing. I mean, he's got that kind of persona, right? And so that's his nod to it's a different kind of entertainment. Yeah, it's really good entertainment. It's a guy who's seasoned. And yeah, Jeff and I are friends. So, full disclosure. I mean, but I'd be saying I said this stuff about Jeff before he reached out to me. I was doing videos that were very controversial. I was saying things like, he might be the best singer the band's ever had. And can't say that. Nope. Well, I mean, Steve Perry will always be the best singer. But as far as a voice, like somebody who's got a classically trained voice and a guy who not only can hit high notes, but also can do like the baritone thing, that's Soto. he's just that good. And he still to this day has all of that vocal acumen that he had, I don't know how many years ago. This was 2007 or something. And we're still talking about this. Can I just do a little sidebar here? So, of all the things you could talk about in a Ross Valory interview, my question would be, hey, Ross, how come you tried to take over the band? Number one, what was that thing you and Steve Smith did? And was Steve Perry on the phone with you guys when you were doing that stuff to try to take the band away from Neil and John? And were you originally with John when you were trying to do this stuff? Or what happened, Ross? That would be a great question. I really don't, I've seen a couple of videos from the new album with you walking around like a younger version of yourself as an avatar. Is it just kind of creepy to me, but other people think it's great. I don't know. And yeah, I heard your remake of Lowrider. By the way, that's a song that doesn't need to be remade. That song does not need any help. The version by War is perfect and iconic, and anyone who steps in to try to mess with that, yeah, I like the Ross Valory version better. Do you really? Wow. Short attention span, I guess. I don't know. I get people have heard the song a billion times, and maybe a new take on it would be interesting for one listen. But then I'm going to go back and just, I'm going to go listen to War because they're better. Anyway, we'll examine this a little more here where Ross has more things to say. A different approach to entertainment, a different kind of voice. But I think different kind of voice. This is very vague, but I think he did as well as he could, and hats off. I don't think he was struggling, Ross. I don't think he was struggling out there. Anyone wants to go back and watch the videos that are up on YouTube. There are still videos. I'm surprised no one tried to get rid of them. But it shows Jeff Scott Soto singing with Journey and just doing a tremendous job, both with the vocals and with this different kind of entertainment. It's called stage presence, Ross. He has stage presence. That's a good thing. His stay with Journey was rather brief. Okay. And why? It was 11 months. Okay. So I'm just going to interject here. It was 11 months and he didn't get a phone call. He found out because Kevin Cronin, the lead singer of REO Speedwagon, just happened to be attending the same event that Soto was at and ended up telling Jeff that Journey was looking for a singer. That's how he found out. And this is all true. I mean, Jeff is he's tired of talking about this because I always say, hey, come on, we'll talk about this. He's like, nope, don't want to talk about this anymore. And I don't blame him. But this is a narrative, right? Bands, it's strange because I only thought this was a political thing where you have a political narrative, but you even have narratives in old rock bands. We have to create this narrative that, and he's not, look, Valory got kicked out of Journey, and for good reason. He's not in the band anymore unless, in the contract it said you can't speak negatively on this particular topic, blah, blah, blah. But he could probably tell the truth about the situation and say, yeah, Jeff shouldn't have been fired the way he was fired. I mean, just balance the story at least, right? We get the narrative is that Jeff wasn't a traditional tenor, and we needed a traditional tenor. So full stop. Why did you bring him on in the first place? Because the tour was happening and you needed someone on short notice. So you used the guy and then you kicked him to the curb, even though you announced he was the new singer. This is where people should have a problem with this. If you make a commitment to someone, you just don't pull the rug out from under them with virtually no notice. Have the guts, and I think Soto has said this to me, have the guts to make the phone call. Hey, Jeff, in that whole, I think we're going to be going in a different direction. I've heard this in my life at jobs that I used to have. Dave, I think we're going to be going in a different direction. Okay. Well, That's encouraging. I'm so happy that you're going in a different direction, because now I have to go in a different direction. I don't have a choice. So Ross Valory says, I think he did as well as he could. Like he was, he made the best of it. He did okay. He did the best he could. Yeah, he did really well. Again, go back and watch the videos. And I know a lot of Journey diehards are going to say, he just didn't fit, Dave. He wasn't Steve Perry. He had a different approach, like Ross says here. But so the band really didn't have a plan B, because they announced him as singer, and then they said, okay, we're going to stop and just go look for someone else. And of course, they found Arnell. And if you ask Jeff, he's going to say, yeah, Arnell's great. He's not going to complain about Arnell. And I don't think he even cares anymore about the way this went down. But I'm just curious, with all the other things to talk about here, why are we talking about Jeff Scott Soto? Man. And this is the other thing that Jeff Scott Soto has corrected, or at least spoke with me privately about it. He said here, his stay with Journey was rather brief, and when it came to writing and arranging new material with the writers, Jeff, Neil, and Jonathan, Jeff's style was very different from what we had or have believed the Journey's signature vocal approach would be. So that just didn't work out. So you've got two things going on here that don't really jive. The first part is that Jeff couldn't and wouldn't write new material with the band. I know personally that he made a heroic effort to try to get together with the band to write material, and was basically told, yeah, no, we're not doing that right now. And that would involve Jeff jumping in his car and driving like 3 hours, and then finding out that, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Okay. I get it. But again, little communication would be nice there. And then we finally get to the truth here, or the narrative that has been established on this. Jeff's style was very different from what we had or have believed the Journey's signature vocal approach would be. So, Arnell, some people use the word doppelganger. He's not a doppelganger for Steve Perry. He's not. Steve Augeri was not a doppelganger for Steve. Nobody was a doppelganger. Hugo is fairly close, and I tell people about Hugo, and they go, "Oh no, don't tell me about Hugo again. I don't want to hear about him." And there are other people out there, I think, that are. And Dean Castronovo does a great Steve Perry, just fantastic. In fact, I think Dean is the best, really. Dean is closest between all the guys, between Arnell, and I know people aren't going to like this, but between Arnell and Augeri and Soto, Dean is closer, but he's the drummer, and he's a little busy, and it's a little difficult to sing and play drums at the same time, and he doesn't want to be a front man. But my point about Jeff Scott Soto is, and that's another issue, the chemistry between Dean and Jeff was off the hook. If you go back and see some of those performances, I mean, very entertaining. A different approach to entertainment, says Mr. Solo Album that nobody's purchasing. Look, it's fine. But I'm just curious, why isn't anyone, he's out there, he's talking, unless again, he has something, at the beginning where he tells everybody, no, you can't talk about why I get kicked out of Journey. You can't talk about the whole coup attempt, which nobody's denying at this point that there was a coup attempt. And, Neil, Sean, everybody has moved on. Ross got another golden parachute. I'm sure it wasn't as big as Steve Perry's. Same with Steve Smith. But I'm thinking they were trying to apply the same kind of principles that Steve Perry used to, have that great deal when he left the band. So all that to say, right, there are better things that you could ask, or more interesting things that you could ask Ross Valory. There's a treasure trove of things. You could talk about Steve Perry You know, if you want to do music related stuff, you could talk about concerts, memorable concerts in the 80s or 70s or whatever. You could talk about hosting the midnight special, right? And being the class clown in the video. I mean, there's so many things, but we're going to talk about Jeff, unless this is kind of like a touchy subject for these guys because they know maybe they should have handled the Soto departure with a little bit more class. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But anyway, I'm just some guy on YouTube. You know, I don't really know what I'm talking about according to a lot of people. So, although Jim Peterick, the guy who co-wrote Eye of the Tiger, he said I knew what I was talking about. So I'm okay with people who say I don't know what I'm talking about. Here's the band Atlantic, a little bit like Survivor. Speaking of Jim Peterick, this is a great album, so you should go check it out. This is called Another World. Maybe some Survivor enzymes in here. Could be. Also, don't forget about Modern Retro Radio. Go listen to them. modernretroradio.com and Patreon, YouTube memberships, buy me a coffee. The algorithm is really killing me. Okay, so I understand my videos aren't that exciting. This is a low level of production value here, but I appreciate those people who put up with that and put up with my scatterbrain dialogue at times, because sometimes I go off on tangents and I don't come back. You know, I just go off and, you know, it's kind of like our current president. It's not that bad, but it's, you know, I'm moving in that direction, unfortunately. I want to thank everybody who is watching. God bless everyone, and I will see you all very, very soon.